Touch the later, everyone, and welcome to the conversation class. And today we're going to deal with some words which are used, some particles. So most of the words that we have been dealing recently are mostly the descriptive word. Either those are adverbs or those are adjectives. Uh, some of which, like previous class that we discussed, some of which are talking about the certainty or the uncertainty. So today we're going to discuss some of the quantitative descriptive words. And all of these, which we have here, almost have the uh, similar meaning, and they're very closely related. Some of them have a certain exceptional usage case in which they may not be interchangeable, but in most of the case, they are almost interchangeable. And all of these are used in our day-to-day life, some of which you may hear only used in the text rather than in daily conversation. But it doesn't mean that one cannot use them in their daily conversation, especially if one is inclined more towards the written language. Then you may feel that these are more applicable, that you can use them more in comparison. So we're going to discuss some of these particles or words. The first one is yongzo, all, completely. 차상, all. 강상, whole. 차상, entire. And yuece. Go here. Get this. So, Sangma. So most of these words probably you have heard them prior to this, and many of you are already using some of these words. For example, I think that many of you might be using words like Sangma or Kangchang, but the words which are more rarely used are Yongzo and Yuece and Chachang. Chachang, relatively, it's in comparison to Yongzo and Yuece, Chazang is probably used more, but in comparison to Changma and Kangchang, Chazang might be less frequent in usage. So before we go to the main topic, let us start with the aphorism. So today we have this aphorism. It says, "Dam gyasho." Let me repeat this again. So the word gyasho means gyasho actually means when it comes to we have this term both in the more domestic setting as well as it's also a term that's used in the military. So gyasho means 1 battalion, 100 army. But here the gyasho means a different meaning because it's more into a domestic setting. So gyasho means it's a place, an area which has 100 houses, 100 families. So an area that consists of 100 families are known as gyashok. Dam gyashok is an older term. It's a term that is related to a more older times in Tibet, and it was a term that was popularized after the scattering of Tibet into different tribes, and there were different local feudal lords, and there were different lords and kings of different places. Some places were governed by families. Some places were governed by the bandits. Some places governed by some places were still more official, which were in and around the place of Yarlung, where it was still more official. But as it went more towards more eastern side of Tibet, it was divided into many small countries, not countries, many small tribes. Some had tribe leaders, some had bandit leaders, some have leaders who were like land lords of the land. So Tam Gyaltsho is a term that comes from a particular time when they had these tribal, they had these tribal chief, which were head of the, which were head of the nomadic tribe. And so in those times, they have the term Tam Gyaltsho, which means a area where they have 100 families. 100 families, and most of them were living in houses made from mud, from where the term Tam comes from, Tamba, which means the mud. The lotus is also known as Tamke, which is translated as the lotus born. So Tam Gyaltsho comes from that particular understanding. So it states that Tam Gyaltsho ge pombo ngai. It says that I may be the leader of 100 nomads, meaning that ge, which has the understanding of 8. So I may be the, it means that, so in more general, it means that I may be the head of many nomadic tribes, or I may be the chief of the nomad tribe. Yeah, but my boss is at home. That means that even though to the world that person may be the head or the chief or the leader, but then his boss is at that time, so his boss is at his home. So this is the meaning of this aphorism. Okay, so this is not particularly talking about more, it's not talking about the moral aspect of things like we had during previous examples. This is more like the way the society functions in certain way. So it's more like a term that's more related to the domestic setting of the society. So let me repeat this one. Once Tam Gyaltsho ge pombo ngai yang, nye pombo nang tu yu. Okay, so let us now begin with our lesson today. So currently, I'm introducing some of the more frequently used words in the Tibetan language, so that you can also integrate them in your own conversation. We started with verbs, then we came to the descriptive word, and currently we are still going under the descriptive word. But here, these are some descriptive words which are more commonly used. And the previous ones, we talk about descriptive word in a more general sense when we talk about descriptive word of a name. But here we're talking about a subgroup of the descriptive word under the name, which could be quantitative. And also here the descriptive word under the adverb, which is also here when we are talking about the quantitative description. Okay, so let me begin. Yongzuo. Sometimes you may also encounter with the same word, but written in a different way. It's Yongsu Zokpa. Yongsu Zokpa or Yongzuo. And you'll encounter this term many times in the text, especially. Yongzuo, all completely. So it depends if it has something to do with the amount of things, quantity of things, then we understand it as all. When it has to do with work, then normally we understand it as completely. Kechikde, mingci tang chezi, chala jorna, changcha changmaam, chazang yuebaham, drupetuen la kogyo. Let me repeat this. Kechikde, mingci tang chezi, chala jorna, changcha changmaam, chazang yuebaham, drupetuen la kogyo. So it's a descriptive word. When used with a naming word or an action word, it should be understood as functioning to state that all of the amount of things are there, meaning that it may refer to the entire all of the amount of things which are present at particular place, or a work is done completely. When it refers to an action, it should be understood as a work that has been done completely. So therefore, the descriptive word has two understanding. One, when it is used with the naming word, when it talks about the quantitative aspect of things, meaning how many of them. And here it means the entire thing, all of the thing that is present there. But when it's used with a verb, it should be understood as to do something completely. To do something completely, meaning that to not leave anything undone. Penna, nye tiru yue tep yongzo nyoyin. Nye tiru yue tep yongzo nyoyin. So this means I will buy all the books. So you, which is more inferential, it's not written here, you have here. So here we see that yongzo is used in order to show the quantity of books, the entirety, all of the books, quantity in the sense all of the books. So here the particular word yongzo points towards the quantity of things because it's used with the naming word tep, which means books. So it functions as a quantitative descriptive word, and quantity which tells all of. Okay, so the second example. Yesterday he did his work completely. Kong is used here in order to show or depict a particular respect towards a person that has been addressed towards. So we can also use the word ke, which is more casual. It's not an honorific, it's a casual term. Ke or ke. Yesterday he did his work completely. So the word yongzo, when it's used with the name, we understand the quantitative aspect of things, of how much is there or of how many is there. So all of them or all of those. And when it comes to action, it's more like doing something completely without leaving anything undone. 用是做吧，用做。Yesterday, he did his work completely. Sangma, which means all. Okay. Descriptive word. When used with a naming word or an action word, it should be understood as functioning to state that all of the amount of things are there or all of the work is done. So here, instead of the usage of this particular word with the verb showing that something has been done completely, it also points to the quantitative aspect of the work, meaning that whatever amount of work there was, all of these works were done. Though when we think about it, when we say that a work has been done completely, it may seem that these two are quite similar, and in some cases, definitely these two are similar. But when we think about the number of different chores or number of different things, because the first one could also be understood as a single chore or a single thing that has been done completely. For example, one can say that I have completely done my homework. and that could be one chore. But then when we talk about all of the chores or all of the work, it might consist of doing homework, doing some other things like, for example, eating lunch, cleaning up the room, for example. When we talk about this thing, then it becomes more quantitative rather than completion of a single task or chore. So therefore, this is the slight difference between Changma and Yongzuo. Yongzuo points towards more quantitative when it comes to action, whereas Changma points towards the more quantitative aspect of things when we use it as with a action word. Whereas Yongzuo, though in some cases it may also be understood as all of the work, because Yongzuo also has a certain aspect where it can function as all. But then at that case, we might also consider that we must take those work not as a verb or action word, but rather as a noun. Because then we're talking it in the aspect of all, and then we have in definition that when it is used as all, it has to point towards a naming word, which isn't incorrect, because some of the words that we have, which may also be considered as verb, can also sometimes function as noun. So therefore, in this case, we have Changma, which can only be understood as all and not completely. Perna, chala de cho Changma nye de. Chala de cho Changma nye de. For example, all of these things are mine. Now all the work is done. Now all the work is done. And so therefore, we must also understand that these words are very closely related to each other, and in some cases, interchangeable. They can be interchanged without causing any difference to the meaning. But these are different ways of saying all. And there are some differences, some very subtle differences between them. Lesso. So, 강상, which means whole. Kiti te, mingci tang checi, mingci da checi, jikci tang chala janna, yongzo yobam, chawa yongzo drupete. Jikci means singular. So we have the word jikci, which you can see here. Jikci means singular. Then the opposite of jikci is mengci, which means plural. So singular and so mingci tang checi jikci means a single action or a single. It talks about a single action or a single thing. So descriptive word, when used with a singular naming word or a singular action, it should be understood as functioning to state the whole thing is there or whole of the work is done. So when used with a singular naming word or when used with a singular action, it should be understood that we're talking about a whole thing which is there, or a whole thing, or a whole of the action is done, meaning that an entire work is finished. So the first one, Perna. Kong la palip kang chi godu. Kong la palip kang chi godu. Kong la palip kang chi godu. For example, he needs a whole bread. Nye tukpa kang tongba yi. Nye tukpa kang tukba yi. I drank the whole tukpa. In both of these cases, we see that the whole describes a name, a singular name. So 강장 is used with a singular name or singular action. And when you search for these words in dictionary, you'll come up with an interesting understanding that the word that is used to define many of these is nensik. Let me write this. So we have description of different words. Mingsik, which means noun, and ketik, gensik, which means adjective. And we had some discussion which says that we will be using the word ketik. So you'll also come across the word nensik, which is nothing different but ketik. It's similar to ketik. So it's a word that puts emphasis on the nature or the characteristic of the particular word. So it's similar to ketik. So when you come across this word, you must understand that it means similar to the ketik or descriptive word. So this is something that you might encounter when you search for this particular word in dictionary. You'll come across the name. If you search it in Tibetan dictionary, you'll come across the name Nensik, which is nothing but ketik, which is descriptive word. Lasso. Chasang, entire. Ketik de, mingzi dan chezi, chala cherce, pangcha changma yobam, drupe tuen la kogu. So it's almost identical to changma. So descriptive word, when used with a naming word or an action word, it should be understood as functioning to state the entire number of things are there, or all of the work is done. So you see that it functions very similar. It functions almost identical to the word changma. And that is the case here. It does function same as all. So, penna. I want the entire books you have here. So when we say entire collection, the entire school, the entire population, all of the population, all of the books. So therefore, you see that both of these are it's almost identical. I want the entire books you have here. Did you do the entire job? Did you do the entire job? So it's almost identical to all. And also functions similarly, because it talks about the quantitative aspect of both the action as well as the name. How many of the jobs have you finished? Did you finish all of the job that was there? Did you completed the entire job? And sometimes also could be understood as completely. For example, did you study all of the chapters? So if we say lobse chazan jang simba yinbe lobse yongzo jang simba yinbe. So did you study all of the chapters? Did you study the entire chapter? Did you complete it? Did you completely study? Did you study the lessons completely? So therefore, you see that in this case, both of these could be used identically, meaning that they could be used interchangeably. 老师用作讲采音呗. Did you completely study all the lessons or all the chapters? Did you completely study the chapters? Or 老师차장讲先吧音呗. Did you study the entire chapters? So you see that sometimes it also functions as 用作. Then the final particle is 乐切, all that exists. And this is a particle like 用作. It's very rarely used in normal conversation, but you will see the usage of them. 客气名词当下来讲呢，即约吧了扩个，即约吧即 means however, 约吧 means that is there. How many? That is there. So all that exists. Descriptive word. When used with a naming word, it should be understood as functioning to state the entirety or all of that which exists. So it's only used with a naming word. So this is the limitation of this particle, that it's only used with a naming word. Penna. Or lega chero. So let's change it to the imperative form. Because I think we already discussed this. The imperative has imperative as a command, imperative as a request, and this is an imperative as a request. Definitely, some would also prefer to use the present tense with present tense here, but it's usually used with the imperative form. So, kechu nuba yuetsegi lega churo. I request you all to work with all the energy that exists within you, meaning that all that you have got. So in a way to use the phrase, all that you have got. But here, the reason why I have used all the energy that exists, though it may not sound very very comfortable when it comes to the English language. But the thing is that I'm trying to keep things in the particular statement as much as possible in word to the source language. And that's the reason why some of the grammatical structuring may be very different, and in some cases it will be incorrect. But the thing is that it's written in this way so that you can compare each of the word to each of the word that has been used in Tibetan. So it's more like a word-to-word translation that has been done here, rather than to translate the meaning. Definitely, it doesn't go against the meaning, but yes, when it comes to the grammatical structuring, definitely some of these might not make sense. But when we look this through the prospect or the aspect of studying the Tibetan language, then it's much easier to compare when we write it like this. And therefore, some of the lines or some of the definition or some of the examples, especially some of the examples, you might feel that the statements have been written in a very strange manner when it comes to the grammatical structuring of English. Some of them may just make no sense at all. But it should be understood that these were written so that one can compare them. When it comes to Tibetan to English, one can compare them and most probably see that the amount of words that has been used in Tibetan is exactly there in English, and that you can match them. You can do you can match the words in English and the Tibetan, and this is also a method to teach vocabulary, so that even though we are having new words at the end, but still, those of you who are still learning a lot of new words, for you, this could be also a chance to study the vocabulary, because you can compare directly. Rather than if I would have used a certain phrase that was original to English, but then when you go and search that phrase in the Tibetan in the particular line, you will not find them. So that's also the reason some of the idioms, as you see, sounds very strange when it comes to English, but that is intended to be that way so that you can compare them. It's a word-to-word translation. It's not a translation of the meaning. And though definitely there is an obligation to the translator when it comes to the grammatical rules of both the source language and the translated language, but some of the times it's just better to stick to the word-to-word, and then it has a particular benefit. It has its own benefit. It has its own sort of usage, and we are compromising the structuring in English not because we want to. It's because there is another reason, something that is more of a priority at a particular time, something that is of a greater priority than just being correct grammatically in English. So therefore, that is the reason some of the structuring will be quite strange when you read it in English, but you should compare them to the Tibetan and find that all of the words in Tibetan has been translated by word in English and has been maintained in a structural format as much as possible. But sometimes there is no other choice but to compromise the structural integrity in terms of the translated language, so that one could have the opportunity to compare the two statements in English, which is the translated language, and Tibetan, the source language. And here we have greater emphasis over the source language. So therefore, the priority should be understanding and learning new words with the examples. The examples are given because some of these examples contains words that may be new words. So therefore, some of the examples might be very uncomfortable when it comes to English grammar, but the intention is thus as I have stated. Okay, so let us continue. So dialogue number 1 between the first person and second person. Come-san, I wish you a good health. Come-san. Come-san, I too wish you a good health. Did the manager, sir or ma'am, come? Come-san, Tadarang pepsong. Tadarang pepsong. She just arrived now. Tadarang pepsong. She just arrived now. When we use the word tadarang, it means just now. So for the word just is an interesting word in Tibetan. We can use the word zam, or we can also use rang. So both of these words can be used to indicate the word just. Tadarang pepsong. She just arrived now. Lasso. Terin chongdu jushi kanina. Lasso. Terin chongdu jushi kanina. Okay, what will be the topic of today's meeting? Lasso. Terin chongdu jushi kanina. So you can change your tone according to question, because sometimes when you're curious, your tone just changes. Similar with the interrogative mark in English, when you have the question mark, you tend to have a different tone, and that tone also plays a great role in the language, in the conversation. So I'll repeat this once more. Lasso, terin chongdu jushi kanina. Culture lo saba inse lega chetang kor hinkire. Pelchil lo saba yinse lega chetang kor hinkire. So it is most probably about how to work, since it is the beginning of the year. Lasso, teta yinsare. Machine kirang kungsen kawa pebayin or chimbayins. Machine kirang kungsen kawa chimbayin. Lasso, teta yinsare. Machine kirang kungsen kawa chimbayin. So you can either use kawa or kangwa. Both of these are correct. Kang and ka. Ka is more colloquial, whereas kang is written. So you can say kangwa, kangja, or you can say kawa, kangtu, or katu. Both of these are correct. Lasso, tera insate, machine, kirang kungsen kangwa chimbayi. Yes, that must be it. Anyways, where did you go during the vacation? So machine means anyways. Kongsen could be understood as vacation. If it's kongsen, which is related to certain it's related to certain religious event or something, then it will become holiday. So it's the same word kongsen, but sometimes they might also add the word to or tuchen, or sometimes tuten. So later, if I have time, I will clarify between the word tuchen, and tuten. These are three words that are used to refer to a particular event or particular holidays in the calendar. Lasso. La nga khungsen ka sope ma je to chimba yin. Kerang khungsen chir pe yin be. La nga khungsen ka sope ma je to chimba yin. Kerang khungsen chir pe yin be. Or you can say chimba yin be or pe yin be. Both of these are correct. La nga khungsen ka sope ma je to chimba yin. Kerang khungsen chir pe yin be. I went to visit the Tsopema during the vacation. Did you go somewhere out of the station during the vacation? Chir should be understood as out of station. Okay. I went to visit the Tsopema, which is a lake. It's in the northern India, one of the pilgrimage site. I went to visit the Tsopema during the vacation. Did you go somewhere out of the station during the vacation? La, nga khungsen ka Tsopema jel to chimba yin. Kerang khungsen chir pepin be. La, nga chimme. Kasan kanda ning be nyoktra mangbo sheki do be nang saba po wa yin. La, nga chimme. Kanda ning be nyoktra mangbo sheki do be nang saba po wa yin. No, I didn't. The old landlord or lady was making too much fuss, and so I shifted to a new house. Nyokta means to make fuss. Nyokta sometimes means to make problem. Nyokta sometimes means to make trouble. So it depends. If we say nyokta se, which means to make trouble, to cause trouble. Nyokta tsabo, which means very someone who is who has a lot who makes a lot of fuss, who nags someone too much. Nyokta tesong, which means I encountered a problem. So it depends with the companion. In Tibetan word, companion words plays a very, very important role. So therefore, it may be a word, but then the meaning of the word as individual can differ with the companion word. Some words do have a particular meaning, which does not change with there is with any words that accompanies them. But some words do change, like the word nyokta. Sometimes it means to make fuss. Sometimes it might mean trouble. Sometimes it can also mean problem. But how do we know it? That depends on the companion word or the word that comes after that in a statement. La nga chi me kanda ning be nyokta mang bo sheki do be nang sabar po yin. La so sarchi nga kirang ki nang tu wong tu kyang nyokta she songa. La so sarchi nga kirang ki nang tu wong tu kyang nyokta she songa. So shwa can also be used as a form of interrogation in the colloquial language. Yes, I came to your house one time and she was making a fuss. Lasso. Sarchi, nga kira ki na to wong tu kyang nyota she songwa. Lare. Kanda saba yaputu. Kange chung zam mindu. Lare. Kanda saba yaputu. Kange chung zam mindu. Yes, the new landlord or lady is good. There is not even the tiniest. So this has, it was supposed to be tiniest. Okay, so teeniest or tiniest inconvenience. So kangil, like similarly, like the one that I said a few statements ago, nyokta. Similarly, the word kangil could be understood as hardship, could be understood as difficulty, could be also understood as inconvenience. So it depends on the statement, depends on the situation, depends on the companion words or the words in the statement. Yes, the new landlord or lady is good. There is not even the tiniest inconvenience. Lare, kanda saba yaputu, kange chungzam midu. La yapure, kete kenanki ngala nesu de labyo na, nge kangpa por ro che tupki rewa. La yapure, kete kenanki ngala nesu de labyo na, nge kangpa por ro che tupki rewa. Okay, that is good. If you would have told me, then I would have helped you with shifting. La yapure, kete kenanki ngala. So the word na is understood as if, but then here we also have another word that tells if, which is kelte. Or sometimes you can also pronounce it as kalte because of the because we have la, so kalte or kelte. Kelte kenaki ngala nesu de labyo na nge kangpa power ro che tuki rewa. So another sort of particle that is used for interrogation is wa. La chala mangbu me tadung kangpa sapa tang ningba ni nyedram tu yuebe kanyal kanya che mason. La chala mangbu me tadung kangpa sapa tang ningba ni nyedram tu yuebe kanyal kanya che mason. There I don't have a lot of things. Upon that, my new house is very close to my old house, so I didn't encounter any difficulty. So here, kangil has been understood as difficulty. So you see, it's very apparent just by these two examples. Here, kangil has been translated as inconvenience. Here, we have understood it as difficulty. So it depends on the statement and the situation that has been described in the statement, whether it is inconvenience or difficulty. La chala mangbo me, tadung kangba sarba tang ningba ni nyedam tu yuebe kangye kanya che masung. Lasso, Teina yabudu. Ola so. Genzin laki keja shekyu redu. Laso. Teina yabudu. Ola so. Genzin laki keja shekyu redu. Okay, if that is the case, the manager, sir or ma'am, is starting his or her talk. Laso. Teina yabudu. So it's good if that is the case. Olaso. Olaso is more like trying to conclude what has been said, or trying to, for example, it's used to say, "Oh yes, I have understood." Olaso, like when we say "well then," similar to saying "well then." Olaso. Genzi laki keja shejureto. Okay, it's good if that is the case. Well then, the manager, sir or ma'am, is starting his or her talk. Lasso. Okay. Now these are some verb or action words for this class. Thick, which means to stack. Thick, stacked. Thick, will stack. Thick, stack. Imperative form. Sheng is the honorific of the word gyak, kangba gyapa. When we say to build something, in the more casual term, we use kangba gyapa. But the honorific of gyapa is sheng. For example, we have this statement, like in the history books. So in the history book of Mugesante, he states the establishment of the Samye Institute University, and he said that which means the King Chusong Deozi built the Samye University. Here we are using the honorifics because we are referring to the action done by a king. But still, it's more respectful. And it also has to do, so the usage of an honorific when it comes to an action depends both on the person who is doing it, or also on what is being done. If the action itself is something that requires or that deserves a respect, like for example, we can build anything, but for example, like we're talking about building a monastery, or anything like a stupa, or something that has, or an institute, or an educational institute which provides education to someone, or certain type of hospital which is built for the benefit of others, then we can use the word sheng. So not only depending on the person, but also depending on what the action, what's the outcome of the action. So sheng, build. Sheng, build. Sheng, will build. Sheng, imperative, build. Por, raise. Par, raised. Par, will raise. Por, raise, imperative. Kur, carry. Kur, carried. Kur, will carry. Kur, carry. Chom, subdue. Chom, subdued. Shom, will subdue. Chom, subdue. So chom den de talks about the one who has subdued. So what is that has been subdued? The four evils has been subdued. So chom den. So this is the past tense. So we use the chom, the one who has already conquered or subdued the four demons. Okay. Example 1. Now Genzi. So this is just one person talking. So Genzi. Tengi namla tishidele. Tenam delor chilo chungwar gesu changmeshu. Tengi namla tishidele. Tenam delor chilo chungwar gesu changmeshu. I wish everyone prosperity and good health. I would like to express countless joy for the return of all of you. So changme is understood as countless. Gasu means joy, to express joy or to express happiness. Shu means to express. So henge namla tashi dele kenam dilor chilo chungwar gasu changme shu. Taring nga tsu juba gashe yuebe changme to duzam she gyun. So the word du zam, du means brief, zam means just. So just brief. But here we have translated as briefly, like adverb, because do some refers to the action, the mannerism of speaking. So the person is going to speak, but how are they going to speak? They're not going to elaborate. They're going to talk briefly. They're going to speak briefly. So therefore, here it's understood as briefly. Do means brief, and some should be understood as just. Like we said before, do some or rang. Either we use rang or some for just. But here, since it's used with an action, so it performs like an adverb. So I will speak briefly on all of the topics of today. So there is kashe, there is kashe, and there is kashe. So kashe and kashe and kashik. Kashe and kashe are quite similar, but kashik is quite similar, but sometimes can be used differently. Sometimes it can be used as a word that singularize, or it what it does is that it points something as a specific. Tongma. Nga cho changma lero yimbe lekun na he cho changme penchun chikpen chiktrogi. So this is a phrase that is quite often it is a phrase that is used quite often. Chikpen chikto. Kangnu chinu. I think we had discussed some of these phrases in the past. So chikpen chikto. Kangnu chinu. Tongma. Nga cho changma le ro yinpe le hun nang he cho changme penchun chikpen chikto ki gulong. Gyugyu ni hajang kel chenpo. So, firstly, it is very important. Firstly, it is very important to have an intention to help each other, since every one of us are colleagues. So, lero means colleagues. Chikpen chikto means an intention to help each other. A sort of intention to help each other is called chikpen chikto. So, therefore, Tongma nga cho changma le ro yinpe le hun nang kecho changme penchun chikpen chikro ki gyuno gyugyu ni hajang ke chenpo re. Laso. Keso re re lega chazang to shedo yoba misi ba re. Te song zang lega jishin la ma she pa yuna nga la kecha tiro. Keso re re lega chazang to shedo yoba misi ba re. Te song zang lega jishin la ma she pa yuna nga la kecha tiro. It is not not possible, or it's impossible for every one of you, or each one of you, to have knowledge on everything. Therefore, please ask me if there is any doubt on something. Kecho re re lega chazang to shedo yoba misi ba re. Te song zang lega jishi la ma she ba yina nga la kecha tiro. So tiro, T is the imperative case. Here, when used with ro, it means requesting someone to do something. keja namne sushiki sheki yuna ma shenken la roba chena hajan yapo yosare. Keja namne sushiki sheki yuna ma shenken la roba chena hajan yapo yosare. It would be very appreciative if those of you who knows how to do something to help those who are having trouble with that thing. So keja namne sushiki sheki yuna ma shenken la roba chena hajan yapo yosare. Legun chazani malaji kinhawa shin lega chena tamye drumje lego yongyu la toba chungzam yame. Legun chazani malaji kinhawa shin lega chena tamye drumje lego yongyu la toba chungzam yame. If we view the entire office as a single system, then there is not a tiniest shred of doubt that we will have great results. Lekun chazani malaji kinhawa shin la malaji kinhawa shin lega chena. Mala means a system, so it refers to a system. Hanwa means to view. Lekun chazani malaji kinhawa shin lega chena tamye drumje lego yongyu la toba chungzam yame. Hetsu nuba chi yue tse ki lega chagyu yinpa la ni toba me. Ngara ngo ne kya nuba khayue chi yue ki lamten chagyu yin. Hetsu nuba yue tse ki lega chagyu yinpa la ni toba me. Ngara ngo ne kya nuba khayue chi yue ki lamten chagyu yin. There is no doubt that all of you will do the job with all of your ability. So, to the best of your ability could be there, but we are using the word 约切. So therefore, we have used all of your ability. I too will try to guide to the best of my ability. That is 抗约之约 or 抗律之律. So these are all phrase I might add. And these phrases, so like I said, these words, some of these descriptive words, some of these phrases, the usage of these descriptive words, they bring a sort of depth in one's conversation. And one reason why some of these lines might sound quite good is also because we are using these phrases, which makes them more interesting than our day-to-day conversation dialogues, which in some cases you might also feel are very monotonous. It's a repetition of the same thing. So you might convey the same message, but now with a more depth, with more usage of words in a different structuring. That might make it seem more interesting, like adding the aphorism sometimes, adding the idioms sometimes. So you should try that. And those of you who want to make sentences using these things, these idioms and aphorism, you can make them and send it to me, and I can check whether they are correct or not. And you can integrate that to your own conversation dialogues. Dilor kangchang nga tsu lekun la koryu sangbo tang penchun la samshe yoba churo. Dilor kangchang nga tsu lekun la koryu sangbo tang penchun la samshe yoba churo. Please be conscious of other staffs and try to establish a great working environment at the office this year. Dilor kangchang nga tsu lekun la koryu sangbo tang penchun la samshe yoba churo. So some of these, even though I have tried to make it less in the form of written language and trying to integrate the more casual and colloquial system, but in some cases you'll see that the usage of the particles have been made. Gen dini mi reshi tang genzing niransam ki gen mare. Dini nganso lemi chazang ki gen re. Gen dini mi reshi tang genzing niransam ki gen mare. Dini nganso lemi chazang ki gen re. This responsibility is not only mine or some of the staff's. This is a responsibility of all of us. Mi reshik means some people. Reshik is another word that is used for some. And so we're also going to discuss the words which are used for some. So mi reshita genzi ngeran samki some only, also used for only, sometimes used for just. So it depends on which type of statement we're using it. Ngeran samki gen mare. Dene nganso lemi chachang ki gen re. Dilor kone pargyu lemi kashe ye. Ketsu tsente Garbang means the announcement board. Garbang jargyu imbe. Ketsu sondu jesu tero. Dilor kone pargyu lemi kashe ye. Ketsu tsente garbang jargyu imbe. Ketsu sondu jesu tero. There are some promotions this year. The names will be stuck on the board after the meeting, and so you can see it there. Dilor kone pargyu lemi kashe ye. Ketsu tsente garbang jargyu imbe. Ketsu sondu jesu tero. Dilo ngansu lege tseshi yoba ketsu chazang cawa chero. Dilo ngansu lege tseshi yoba ketsu chazang cawa chero. There will be an annual quota for work this year, and so please try finishing it. Dilo ngansu lege tseshi yoba ketsu chazang cawa chero. Laso ta she gyoba yongzo she tsaring. Changma la lo saba yakbo yongbar menam yu zhe tele. Laso ta she gyoba yongzo she tsaring. Changma la lo saba yakbo yongbar menam yu zhe tele. Okay, then I have spoken about all that is necessary. I wish everyone a good working year. Wish you a great health and prosperity. Laso ta she gyoba yongzo she tsaring. Changma la lo saba yakbo yongwar menam yu zhe tele. Okay, so now the new words that we have used. So these dialogues that are provided, these particular scripts that are provided in each lesson, please try to repeat them and try to, if possible, try to practice this particular speech with people that know Tibetan. If you have someone that knows Tibetan, you can practice with them. You can share the script, and then either of you can be one of the speaker, and then you can practice. And then you can also read them again and again to also improve your pronunciation and clarity, and then getting used to the pattern or the rhythm. And then the second thing is that you can also revise the vocabulary. Just compare the English to the Tibetan. And if there are any doubt, for example, you might think, oh, why is this being used for this? It does not seem correct. Then you can directly ask me, and then I'll clarify why certain things were used for certain words. Though primarily we try to make it as close to word, sometimes word to word are just ridiculous, because then the entire structural integrity of the sentence no longer remains as it is. So that is a problem. Okay, so Kongsing, vacation, sometimes also holiday, depending on when this particular Kongsing is. If it's a Kongsing, for a particular event or religious religious events, then it's holiday. If it's just a vacation, that is like a vacation from work, then it's a vacation. Samshi, to be conscious, to have conscience, or to be conscious. To the best of ability, one's ability. Nyota, problem. Ye, responsibility. Losaba, new year. Nuba, ability or energy. Lero, colleague. Do some, just brief. Do means brief. Some means just. Kanyelte, encounter difficulty. So both of these are compound words. Dusam is a compound word. Kanyelte is a compound word. Kanyel means difficulty. Encounter is teba. Du means brief. Some means just. Okay, so these are the idioms for today's lesson. The first one is kayo layo. So, like I said, the translation in English is quite uncomfortable when you read it. It means hand with mouth. Kayo layo, having hand with mouth. So this idiom means to be able to put something on practice as it was said to be. So not just being said, it's something that is practical, something that is pragmatic. When met with situation, not everything works, and so the things which are relevant and applicable in particular situation is known as hand with mouth. If referred to a person, it means someone who has truly or in action helped. Something who is truly or in action has done something, like to help or helped in a certain action. Kangil tetu kongi kayo layo ki roba chesong. Kangil tetu kongi kayo layo ki roba chesong. During the difficult times, he truly helped us. Kangil ki kayo layo ki roba chesong. Kaya ngoga, which means good speech and good expression. This idiom means to speak to someone with respectful tone and with good expression. Yela kayo ngoga ki chamji shina rangi chungto troyi mare to. So this particular sentence, it means if you greet someone with good speech and good expression, then you yourself will not become a smaller person. If you greet someone with good speech and good expression, then you yourself will not become smaller. Okay, so this is it for today's lesson. We have discussed some of the particles, which means almost the same. So they are almost same. There are some exceptions in which these cannot be used interchangeably. Some restrictions and limitations, but in most cases they are the same. So yongzo, changma, kangzang, chazang, yuece. Okay, so if anyone has questions, I will have time for just one question today. That's all. So re re. Chetap khangrung shi la tene re re shepa te chazang shepe chap cheki yue tam. Sangma, which means all, and rere means each and every. So rere has to be understood as each and every. So you see that though it may be used to show everything that is there, If we say mirere shin iru ongu, which means each and every person has to come here. Michaza diru ongu. Entire people have to come here. So though in the final result, both of them includes each and every one of them, but as you see in the difference in the translation, one will be known as each and every, whereas the other one will be understood as entire. So entire may not be that specific when it comes to each and every. So that might be the difference between them. But yes, these at the end have the similar result. It talks about everything that is there. So that might be something that's the similarities between them. But when we come to the meaning of each of these words, one means entire, the other means each and every. So there may not be a statement in which both of these are interchangeable. Lasso. Lasso. Okay, so this is it for today. And thank you very much for joining in. And if you have any questions, any more questions, make sure to post them. And if you have any doubts, you can also ask me directly, or you can post them in the group. So thank you very much for joining in. Please listen again and again to this and try reading it while listening to the way I'm so that you can practice your speaking, and then you can also compare the pronunciation, and you can have what you can do is that you can study the pronunciation while repeating it, and then you can also understand the pauses that I make. So accordingly, you can do that. But definitely, you can also try speaking it your way, and then you can send me a recording, and I can say, even if the pauses are incorrect, sometimes it might depend on the way you're speaking it. So some pauses could be made in a different way in exceptional cases. Just send me the recording, and I'll say, oh, you have done correctly or incorrectly. So depending on how you have spoken it. Yes, so this is it for today. Thank you very much for joining in, Lao. And I hope you have enjoyed this course, this particular lesson as much as I have. And I'll see every one of you for the next class that is going to be on Sunday. Lasso and Tashitele, and I hope every one of you have a good morning, good evening, good noon, good afternoon, good night, depending on where you are, and have a wonderful day or evening or night. Lasso Tashitele.